Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Pratibim Dwivedi and welcome to this podcast. In today's session, we will actually talk to one of my very dear friend. His name is Igor. He has, I think, 10 plus years of experience already, and he hails from Netherlands. He's he is an accomplished engineer with a lot of experience. He has been a founder here in Singapore. So let's prick his brain about what's happening in tech industry and how can the cost of building a software be brought down. Let's hear from him.
Yeah. Firstly, I would like to ask you that should SMEs and startups focus on digital transformation or should they only focus on the core business? And if they want to focus on digital transformation, then how much to what extent? What do you think?
I think that's a really deep question because digital transformation it's it's such a huge topic, and it basically says that if your business is doing things in a non-digital way, that you can now do them in a digital way. Um, However, and this is why I also came to you and we talked about these problems, is I do see some companies spend hundreds or thousands or millions of dollars on like software projects, integrations, managing all this stuff, hiring consultants to sometimes achieve very little benefit from all that investment. Um, I think sometimes digital transformation is started with the hope that you will achieve these multiplier scaling effects because now everything is automated.
Yeah.
But I think that sort of separates what digital transformation is from what your core business is doing. And so I don't think all companies should think we should go into this digital transformation. I think they should focus on their core business and then look at all the specific steps
Mhm.
in their whole like production chain or whatever they're doing. If they're a bakery, for example, um, just look at the specific steps in your chain and look at them as yourself, not from a consultant's perspective, and think like,
Right.
okay, what can we do about this specific step and what kind of tool fits there, um, instead of trying to integrate the whole thing with a new ERP package and trying to automate literally everything. Um, because sometimes you invest millions, but then your ROI is only 5%. And so it's not perfectly a worthwhile investment, especially if you need to keep paying consultants and contractors to maintain everything for you. Um,
Yeah.
so no, I don't think all SMEs should do it. And I think if you feel the need or if you feel inspired, start with just going back to your core process, your core value proposition, and start small.
I love that thought because often what happens is that these startups are so tech focused that they build almost everything and they don't know about the business itself. So
Mm,
I totally agree that first they should know how to run the business and do everything manually first. Probably not focus on automation at the very first step. First, understand what your core business is, how it is done. Then you yourself will find out what are the touch points where you can automate or ease the pain. That is
yeah.
where digital transformation makes. Yeah.
So do you agree with what I just said, or do
Or
you have a different take on it?
yes. So no. So I agree. So my point. So basically, the question was that should startups and SMEs be dead focused on digital transformation, or they should understand do the core business first, which I think we both agree that they should first understand their business and then look at how to digitize parts and pieces of that process and not just start with the ERP and then build the business based on the ERP.
Mm.
Uh, Next question is that why what is hard about software development at SMEs and startups?
I think it's the sort of the same answer as the previous question. I think if you decide to go into digital transformation, but your focus is not clear,
Mhm.
then you can do many things. And if I ask you as a technology person, or you ask me as a technology person, like, hey, Igor, what can we do? And theoretically, we can do so many things because we can program the computer to do this or that. We can connect it to a robot or whatever
Yeah,
you want. Um, so it's really hard to start with what can we do instead of starting with what should we do, like what's the
yeah,
problem we're trying to solve. And so I think what's hard about software development, which is building new technology, is that you need to start analyzing your problems first. Like you
mm,
have this process, you're baking breads, you want to maybe scale up how many breads you can bake on a single day, or you want to speed up your process so you can deliver it before breakfast or whatever. That's like a problem you can analyze,
right.
and you want to think through that whole thing again and again and again. Like, why is it hard? What are we struggling? Are we just too tired to wake up at 5 a.m. to bake breads? Is that the problem? Like, these are the kind of questions that you would need to start and analyze. However, I face in some teams and companies that analyzing problems is awkward or hard to do, or
Mm,
people think it should be obvious what the need is, it should be obvious what the problem is that we're solving. And so it feels hard to go back to the drawing board and go back to rethinking your entire business, which feels scary because it means
right.
change. So I think that first part it makes it quite difficult. Um, yeah, how do
Absolutely.
you experience this aspect? Like, why do you think it's hard? Because you've been in like HR tech and you've been doing many projects. Like, why do you think it's hard?
True. So, when you ask the consultant, they will tell you, of course, there are 1,000 ways to do something. But often what happens is that there is a feature overload, means the company or the client wants almost everything. And they spend so much of money on these unnecessary features that they forget actually what was the core of what was the initial ask itself. So I would agree that clients should ideally very clearly focus on what they are looking for and how it benefit their business at first place. Because you can, when you get into digital transformation, everything shines and everything looks attractive. Oh, I will implement this and that and all of that, but it's an expensive affair. So clients should be very objective about the ROI and what are the either saving or benefiting by doing that digital transformation. And it should not be just because of that they need to have tech in them or become the tech company instead of the core business. So yes, I like the fact that they should focus on their core business and many other things first.
So I think you,
So
you
is it
touched
a
on one thing is that you think clients should go back to the initial ask because they tend to keep asking for more things.
yes,
They want
and
all
which
the
is called
features, but
feature creep,
yeah, it
scope
just
creep.
kind of explodes. Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
if
indeed
you
one.
look back, many of these projects will always have a scope creep. I have been in a situation where a consultant and the implementation partner is saying that no, this is beyond what we have initially started with. But they when they see the product and they always want more, which is a natural tendency, but it should be objective is what I feel. What I used to recommend was always list down your features as must haves and good to have. Means what are the things that you need and are absolutely necessary for your business. They should be done first. And if there's
Mm.
few things which you felt like were jazzy and it's good to have, then you probably do it if budget and time allows. But Park it for later, probably. Let's get the must-haves first.
Why would it be so hard to hold back scope creep? Because it keeps happening, right? I mean, I don't think it's solved, and you see it happening time and time again. Why is it hard to hold yourself back as a
Uh, so,
manager or whatever?
so, uh, so what happens is that if you're in an agile development model, then it is easier to manage. But if you have very small project where the scope should be logged upfront, then the scope creep becomes a problem. But agile actually is designed in a way where you can continuously change the scope. So I think, and it happens because when you see the first output, you realize or you want more. You realize that either something was missed, or then you tend to add more and more. So that's why I often recommend agile, because many a times clients don't have a very clear cut vision of
Mm.
what they want as the end product.
You don't know everything in advance.
Yeah, yeah,
So I guess if you don't realize that you don't know everything in advance, then it becomes harder to accept that reality that a month down the line you realize, we forgot about this little
yeah,
thing. Um, so accepting that reality, and then this agile approach is sort of an acceptance of like things will change. And
exactly. Yeah,
how do you deal with that? Right? Yeah,
right.
good one.
Uh, Next thing which I would love to know from you is that, is it a good choice to build everything from the scratch and custom, or should they focus on existing tools and apps and stuff that's already available out there?
There's a conflict of interest. If you ask me that question as a contractor, then I will
Mhm.
say yes, let's build from scratch. We can build everything. If you ask that me as a consultant, then I will say find all the free tools you can find to solve this problem. Does
Yeah,
Google Sheets and Google Forms work? Can you fix something with that? Is there some free like app builder or whatever that you can try out and have an intern try something with that? I think I would always push for that before going
true.
into writing code.
Right.
Um, yeah, because it kind of forces your thinking to simplify, and
Yeah,
the narrow set of features that these simple free tools give you forces you to be creative and focus on the problem you're solving. While if you shift to writing code, then suddenly everything becomes possible because you can write
right,
any code you want. But then you don't realize the second order or third order cost of
right.
maintaining and writing code. So I think I would always go for like find any apps you can find, try it with that. Um,
Yes. I also recommend my clients to first go with what already exists, and preferably SaaS products. What generally happens is that these products are always having the baseline ready. I mean, you don't have to worry about, for example, user access management,
yeah,
something that every tool has to have. So I always recommend them to first start with a pre-built product, which might be vanilla, but you may want to add and customize it based on your need. But I refrain, or rather, never recommend to start from the scratch unless and until that thing has never been done before, which is rarely the case. Mostly,
mm,
you will find something available.
I guess there's a bit of a conflict of interest always, right? Because
True.
if you're a software development contractor or you're an employed software developer, then you make money by
Yeah.
building and maintaining more software. Uh,
True.
so then it's hard to sort of be aligned with the benefit or the value to your employers or your client's business,
Right.
which
However,
which can sometimes. Please go ahead.
I still insist on using the pre-existing tools for a very simple reason. That is, they are less error prone. whenever somebody starts, even if I start from the scratch, there are higher chances of it being a buggy product than something which has already been tested and provided. So when I look at it, I see that there is more value for the client, even though which is priced lesser, far lesser, but I still insist on going with the uh, vanilla product, not built from the scratch, because it is gonna be for sure more buggy than what already exists.
Yeah, and that kind of hurts your chances too. So if you have to maintain your own buggy software and
Exactly.
work on all of that,
Exactly.
it's gonna be a struggle. Yeah,
And it could be a reputation degrade also, that my reputation goes down if I have provided a buggy product versus a good quality product. So I look at it from that angle. And for a long term relationship, I generally tend to request them to go with pre-existing tools.
yeah. I think there's sometimes I've gone this approach, and there's some like grant or some funding that a yeah business owner or an entrepreneur has that kind of requires there to be some kind of custom
Yes.
technology.
Right.
Like even if it doesn't make sense, but still to get like the valuation or to get the grant funding, there needs to be some kind of technology investment.
True.
And I'm like, no, we can solve this right away, but we need to build it from scratch. Do you have that? Have you
100%.
seen that sometimes?
So many cases, and I think many of these companies who go for grant, they insist for these kind of things where you build custom. And
Yeah.
I think half of my clients have asked that same thing, that please build something which is custom and can be approved for the grant. Like, okay. Okay, fine.
Classic. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So next topic is that uh, what kind of problems do SMEs and startups face, which motivates them to hire developers instead? Left. I actually want to. So we have two more questions, but I was thinking uh, that we talk a little bit about this thing, which is freelancer versus full-time economy. If you're okay. So I would probably ask
Cool.
something like this, that what is your opinion about the way job market is changing and it is shifting from full-time to freelancer economy? What do you think on this? What's your take? Is it
You're
good
talking
for the
about like
companies?
software developers that are moving to
Yeah,
freelance
yeah.
or in general?
So not from employee perspective, but from company perspective. I mean, for SMEs and startups, do you
Yeah,
think this shift, which is happening from more of a permanent based roles to a freelancer or gig economy, then is it good, or is it? What are the pros and cons, basically?
that's a good point. From a company's perspective, I would want people in engineering roles, especially, to be aligned with the company's success.
Mhm.
Um, and from that perspective, I would figure out what's the best way to contract or employ someone that's going to engineer technology for me. But I think we would touch upon a previous point that a software developer, whether employed or freelance, benefits by building more software. More
Yeah,
complicated, more maintenance means more hours to bill, higher prices, and more scarcity. The more complex the software I build, the less developers actually are available in the market to maintain it.
yeah.
So as a company, I would prefer some kind of performance-based bonus or stock options or whatever I can figure out to align my engineers with the success of what they're building.
Okay.
And then it wouldn't really matter if it's freelance or employed.
So
Then that
in
would,
your
to me, be a technicality, as long as
okay,
they're
so
aligned
in
with the success of the project.
so in your company, you yourself had, I think, full time and freelancers both, right?
I did both. Yeah, correct.
What was your experience? I mean, if given a choice, then which way would you go?
I think again, it it depends. Like freelance, I would say it's for a shorter period of time. I
Mm.
don't think freelance is a long-term option for
Mm.
employing people. Because in a lot
Mm.
of countries, the laws for freelancing are also that a freelancer cannot work for your company the entire year, because they will be considered
Oh.
legally an employee. It's like that
Oh.
in Singapore, also like in Europe, in many countries. So even if you want to have someone around for a longer time, then it's better to hire them as an employee anyway. So just
Oh.
legally and financially, and then I wouldn't think it really matters. I think it really matters is how they are aligned. Do they have a bonus if the system performs well? What are the metrics along which their technology is being measured, like what they produce?
Mm-hmm.
If that's aligned, then they're incentivized to build the most efficient, most reliable solution that solves the problem. And if they're
Yeah.
rewarded for solving the problem, then that will be okay, freelance or employed. Um,
Fantastic.
yeah, I think it depends on the person. Like if they bring in specific expertise to solve a specific problem. Like I was building an iPad app, and there was one computer science student. He was studying graphics rendering, OpenGL, game
Mm.
graphics, and he could work on simulating the brushes on the iPad. And he did great work, very specific. And if the iPad app did well, we might have hired him full time. It didn't do well,
Mm.
so he was there for a short term, like 3 months contract. Um, so I think that depends on the situation.
Lovely. Uh, so I think we
Yeah,
have reached the end of our podcast, but it was a very lovely conversation, man. I mean,
cool, man. Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
s- so much to learn from your experience, and actually, what happens is I feel that you bring in a very different perspective from what I used to think. So it's really knowledgeable, really something that I cherish and love to learn from you and also others as well.